Hi friends, my name is Nishantha. I'm a dyslexic science teacher teaching here in Southern California. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that I use to learn how to read with dyslexia. Like most dyslexics, I used to really struggle with reading until I kind of figured out this system. Now I read more and I do it better than 90% of non-dyslexic people. In this video, I'm going to give you my exact blueprint and toolkit to systematically improve your reading over time. Reading unlocks the ultimate skill of being able to learn everything else. Learning how to read well has been life-changing for me, and I hope it'll be for you too. So I structured this video into 3 parts. In part 1, we're going to take a look at the exact mechanics of reading and where dyslexics struggle in the process. In part 2, I'm going to show you exactly how to hack each part of these mechanics as a dyslexic. In part 3, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to help you learn how to read even faster. This video is part of the Dyslexia Masterclass series I'm doing right here on YouTube. If you like this video, please check out the playlist. I'll put it in the description below and in the cards above right here. Part 1, the mechanics of reading. So what actually happens when you read? Reading is actually a 2-stage process that simultaneously happens inside your brain. So the first stage is the decoding. The second stage is the comprehending. So let's take a look at each of these stages so we can actually understand what's going on. So when you're decoding, your eyeballs will look at a page with some symbols, and those symbols will be interpreted by your brain as words with meaning. So if you're really good at decoding, or if you're an expert at decoding, you'll be able to take a look at a page with text in it, and you'll be able to decode these really fast. You'll be able to do it without making that many mistakes. And if you see a new word, you'll be able to kind of figure it out quickly. And it'll be automatic. It'll be almost effortless. You can't but help read this thing. So if I was to put some text on the screen right now, your brain automatically just decodes those, right? On the other hand, if you're struggling with decoding, it's going to make you slower at doing it. You're going to make a lot more mistakes while you're decoding. If you see a new word, you're going to be challenged more, and it's going to take a lot more effort for you to read than an expert decoder. So the biggest issue when it comes to reading for us dyslexics is at this decoding stage. Now, the reason why dyslexics like us have such a hard time with the decoding stage is because decoding is a very fine, detailed, oriented task. And dyslexic minds are not really efficient at processing detailed, fine-oriented tasks. Our brains are more optimized to process generalized, decentralized information. If you guys want to learn more about how a dyslexic brain is different from a neurotypical brain, I have a video. I'll link it in the description down here and in the cards up here. Check it out. It's really interesting. I go over not only the differences that normal brains and dyslexic brains have, but the advantages that you get as a result of having a dyslexic brain. It's really cool. I think you guys will like it. So what I'm saying here is when it comes to the first stage of reading, which is decoding, our brains need more focus and our brains need more energy in order to do the same amount of work as a neurotypical brain. So we'll get tired faster, we'll lose concentration faster. Generally, we'll be less efficient when we're reading. Look, so this is kind of a big deal for dyslexics. We tend to use most of our energy and focus on the first stage of reading, and we don't have that much mental resources saved up for the second stage of reading, which is comprehension. So comprehension is pretty simple to understand. Basically what it means is when you read something, when the words come into your head, you understand the meaning of those words, like the vocabulary words, and you're able to take those words and put it into context of what you're reading. So you know how different words have different meanings depending on how you say it. So like I can be talking about an apple that I eat as a fruit, or I can talk about an apple as like the computer that I'm using. So you have to know the context in which that vocabulary words is being used in order to really understand it. So that's basically what comprehension is. But the problem here is that sometimes we'll read something and we'll be able to perfectly decode it, but once it enters our head, we don't know what we read. Like we read the whole thing, but the comprehension didn't click. And the thing that's happening here is most of our resources is being dedicated to the decoding. We're focusing so hard, we're using so much energy on decoding that when the words actually come into our head, they're not being able to be processed, they're not being able to be comprehended for you guys to actually understand what's happening. So this type of thing would happen to me all the time. I would perfectly read a paragraph and I would be able to decode every single word, and I would get to the end of the paragraph and I would realize, like, dude, you don't actually know what you read, or you don't remember anything that you read. You don't even know what this article is about. And that really frustrated me, and I'm sure that frustrates you guys too. So that brings us to the second part of this video. In this section, I'm going to give you some hacks that you can use to make decoding and comprehending a lot easier on your brain. So when you're actually doing it, you'll actually understand what you're reading and you'll be able to decode things a lot easier. So let's start with decoding. Now, one of the best ways to train your dyslexic mind to become more efficient at decoding is to use a text-to-speech application as kind of like your brain's coach or trainer. Now, the best text-to-speech application out there is called Speechify, and the CEO of Speechify is actually a dyslexic person, and I've spoken to him a couple of times, and he's really cool, and he's working really hard on this app to make this app really useful for dyslexics. So that's a really cool thing. So let's go ahead and download it. And once you have it downloaded, and once you have an article that you want to check out, so let's say I want to read this in Speechify, I'll just come over here at the little box with the arrow pointing up, scroll down to the Speechify button, click on it. What that's going to do is it's going to send it to my Speechify application, and it's going to kind of look like this. Now, the next thing you want to do here is you want to go ahead and select the setting at how fast you want to have Speechify read this document to you. Now, normally I read at about 450 words a minute. Now, the only reason I can do that is because I've been decoding for so long and I've been practicing using Speechify and other applications so I can read really fast. But normal people usually read around like 150 words a minute. So what you want to do here is you want to go ahead and lower that even below 150 words a minute, because what you want to do is you want to have your brain read or your brain decode the text on the page, and then you want Speechify to confirm it for you. And what that's going to do is going to create this like really tight feedback loop. Your brain's going to read something, or your brain's going to decode something. It's going to get confirmation from this text-to-speech application, and you're going to continue to do that. And hopefully, if you come up with a word that's kind of difficult for you to read, the application is going to pick up that weight for you, and you're going to be able to proceed. So the thing that you're trying to do when you're doing this activity is you're trying to give your brain lots and lots and lots of different reps. So you're going to read, confirm, read, confirm, read, confirm, read, confirm, and what that's going to do is it's going to activate a pathway inside your brain, and it's going to keep firing that path, and every time you fire it, that pathway is going to get faster and better and faster and better and faster and better. There's a saying that says things that fire together, wire together. So over time, what we're hoping for is we're hoping that we're not hoping, it's actually going to happen. By doing this practice over and over again over a long period of time, your brain is just going to become much more efficient at doing this thing because it has so many reps. And the really cool thing is this whole thing is going to be kind of effortless because you have like a coach, you have this trainer, you have this artificial intelligence kind of confirming the words that you read. So it's not going to be like a very difficult thing for your brain to do because it's going to have this automatic coach that's going to be helping it along. Now, the thing that you want to kind of keep in mind when you're doing this is you don't want to zone out. Just try to focus on each word as the blue thing is going to it. So you'll see what I'm talking about here. So take a look at this blue highlight. It says finally at the top. So I'm going to play it. Let's play the first paragraph here and then try to focus on the blue part and then try to decode the thing before the Speechify application says it to you. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here.
It's finally the 2020s. After 20 years of not being able to refer to the decade we're in, we're all finally free in the clear for the next 80 years until 2100. At which point I assume Agi will have figured out what to call the 2 decades between 2100 and 2100.
So yeah, so that's pretty easy, right? So if you do this for a long enough time, your brain will actually get used to decoding things a lot faster. Now, this is the same thing that I've used to get really fast at reading. Before I had Speechify, I used like Audible, and I would just take my finger and I would just do the same thing. I would get the Kindle book and I would get the Audible book and I would read the Kindle version with the Audible book as it was going, and I would just use my finger to trace along the words. And as I got faster at decoding, I would increase the speed that the Audible was playing at. You know, if you do this for a few months, you can start reading faster and faster and faster and faster, and soon enough you're going to be reading faster than like neurotypical people will be reading, and that's a really cool thing for dyslexics. It makes me really happy and stoked when I can like outread people, right? Like I read more books in a month that most people read in like a year. It's something that I'm really proud of, that like I'm a dyslexic and I read more books than normal people. I read better than normal people. I understand better than normal people. And yeah, it gives me a lot of pride. I don't know if that's like something to like brag about, but it makes me really happy that I've been able to like figure this system out to where now I can like outread normal people or neurotypical people. I want to give you a couple of hacks for the comprehension stage of reading. So remember, the comprehension stage is just knowing the meaning of words, vocabulary, and understanding the context in which words are presented. So for the vocabulary part, I would get in the habit of just start looking up words whenever you come across them. So if you're using a device like a Kindle or like any other electronic reader, you can literally just double click on the word and a definition will pop up. So just start getting used to doing that. And if you're using a piece of like a paper book, just get in the habit of pulling out your phone and just looking up words. And what will happen is over time you'll get like this library of words that build up in your head, and you start seeing patterns in different words. And without you even realizing it, you'll start being able to guess what words mean without actually having ever seen them before. And that's because most like English words have a Latin and Greek roots to them. And once you start seeing some of these roots over and over again, you'll kind of start understanding like themes within words. And pretty soon you'll be able to look at any word and be like, I think that kind of means this. And that'll kind of happen to you over time. The second part of comprehension is being able to put context to what you're reading. So being able to use the other words around the word that you're reading, or the paragraph or the sentences that you're reading, and to make sense of that. And the best way to do that is to do a pre-reading process. I did another video on pre-reading. I'll link it into the description below right here. And what you want to do when you're reading a book is you don't want to read it from front cover to the back cover and sequentially. What you want to do in the beginning is you want to get a mental model of what this book is, especially if it's like a nonfiction book. Like if it's a story, then yeah, read it from front to back. That's really great. But if it's a nonfiction book, it's a book that you're trying to learn from, you want to build a model of this book, and you want to anticipate what's happening and what's going to happen and what are the information that's going to be coming into your brain. So that way, when you're reading something, it'll be in context already. You'll have like a mental model to like put these little blocks of information as they come in. So when you see a word, you will know like the best way to interpret that word, basically. And when you get lost, you can always go back to your mental model and orient yourself. It's kind of like a map that shows you where you are in this information and where you're going to be going. And doing a pre-reading will also help you ask better questions as you're reading, and that'll help you comprehend the material better as well. All right, guys, let me know. Do you guys actually pre-read? Comment below if you do pre-read. If you don't pre-read, say I don't pre-read. If you do, say I do. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys are doing. And if you have any ideas on pre-reading that you want to share with the rest of us, I'd love to hear it. I just have my own system, but I haven't done that much research into it, and I'm probably going to do a video just on pre-reading pretty soon. So if you have any good ideas, let me know. I'd be really curious to see what you guys are doing. Part 3, tips and tricks for learning to read even faster. So the first tip that I have to give you guys, and this is the most important tip, is when you're trying to learn to read with your eyeballs, or eye reading, the most important thing is you want to fall in love with reading. It's not going to matter how well you decode. It's not going to matter how well you comprehend what you're reading if you don't love it. Because if you don't love it, you're probably not going to do it. And the only way reading is going to be useful for you is if you start doing a lot of it. And the best way to do a lot of reading is to actually fall in love with it. And the best way to fall in love with reading is to read fiction books. Fictional books are really cool because it gives you an escape and it's entertaining. It's like watching a movie that has like unlimited budget, and like it's really cool. What I would do if you want to start falling in love with reading is I would get some audiobooks of stories, and then I would get the Kindle version of that story, and I would alternate chapters. So I'll read one chapter in the audiobook, the other chapter with the reading. One chapter in the audiobook, one chapter with the reading. So when you're doing the audiobook, it'll automatically kind of get you into the story, and then you'll be curious to see what happens next. You'll open up the book, you'll keep reading, and the audiobook will kind of give you a little bit of like support to keep you pushing you towards the end of this book. And by the time you get to the middle or the last part of the book, you'll just want to power through it. And if you do that process a few times, eventually you're going to start falling in love with a particular series or a particular author or a character or a genre. For me, it's science fiction. And science in general, like the non-fiction books I read is on science, and the fiction books I read is on science fiction and fantasy. So these are the books that really got me into reading. And it's because I am into reading, now I can approach harder and harder books because I'm in like love with reading. So the second tip I want to give you guys when it comes to reading is kind of related to the first one, is you want to buy audiobooks and Kindle books together, because there's this thing called Whisper Sync, and what that will do is it'll link up where you're reading and where the audiobook is at. And what I do is, if I was brand new to reading and I wanted to fall in love with reading, what I would do is I would get to the best part of the book in my audiobook, and then I would stop, and then I would force myself to read. Very slowly the physical book. And what that'll do is it'll build your confidence, and the story, your curiosity for what's going to happen will push you to the end of the book or the end of the good parts. And then once it gets boring again, you can throw on the audiobook, and then it'll push you towards another cool part. The important part here is to stop yourself and read the physical book because you're trying to build a skill as well. Third tip is you should probably just pick a series that you love and just keep rereading it. So I probably read the Harry Potter series like at least 10 times now. And I keep going back to it because it's like this nostalgic, fun thing. And if I was learning how to read right now, if I was learning how to decode, that'd be a really good thing. And the first time I read the Harry Potter series, it was on an audiobook. And the second time, it was like on audiobook again. But then every time after that, it's been like the physical books, because now I know the story, now I know what's happening and stuff like that. And now when I'm reading it, I can hear those characters. I can put myself into those stories really easily, even if I'm just reading on a physical book. And I think the same type of thing will happen to you once you find like a favorite series or like a really good book that you really enjoy reading. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is speed reading. Do not try to speed read, you guys. When you're first trying to read, and when you're dyslexic, you already have like this really incredible hurdle that you need to jump over because of the way your brain is wired. So why would you like try to sprint before you can crawl, right? So eventually you will be able to read really fast. I promise you that. You'll be able to read faster than normal people if you have enough reps. But in the beginning, you want to develop your love for reading first. Don't force yourself to speed read. You're not going to do yourself any favors. Even if you do learn how to speed read, that should come later on in your journey. Like, give yourself a couple years to get really good at reading and really comfortable with reading and fall in love with reading and like understand what you're doing when it comes to reading. And then you can like take some speed reading tutorials and just start doing that and start working on that. And by the way, when you read a lot, the speed reading thing will come naturally as well. All right, guys, that's it. Love you. Talk to you soon. Bye. Friends, the YouTube recommendation engine is an AI system. It's an algorithm that shows you videos that it thinks you like to watch. So if you like to learn how to leverage technology to become smarter, build your personal monopoly, and master your dyslexia, like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you do that, it'll teach the YouTube algorithm that you like videos like this one. And then YouTube will start showing you the rest of the series on your homepage. So if you don't want to miss out on this opportunity to master your dyslexic mind, like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Love you. Bye.